If the question is, are we trying to influence them to pass legislation that's going to weaken environmental laws, that's going to weaken federal and state air and water quality, the answer is no.
You're already trying to change the legislation on that. Through heavy lobbying of the state government.
Do we have a lobbyist is what you're asking? And yes, we do have a lobbyist.
Yeah,
Is there legislation right now that's out there? I don't believe there is.
I would like to object to the bill being introduced as a committee bill. I believe the bill has not been worked on in committee, and would like to just put that objection out there.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I just have a question as to who actually wrote the bill.
I think there was a group of folks that had input in it. I think there were probably legislators. There were probably people from communities. I think there was a group effort to put information into this.
Well, usually the author's name is on the bill.
And this morning, I called the Legislative Fiscal Bureau. I said, is there a fiscal note on this? One was not available. Then I called the Legislative Council. And I said, hey, we got this controversial bill. They want to have an exec on it. Can you refresh me when you have a controversial bill? For example, last session. And they gave to me a list of bills, introduced as committee bills. They were consensus bills, leaving the committee. That's not what we have before us. And to do due diligence for the people of this great state, I don't want to give the appearance that this bill is a consensus bill. For that reason, I will be voting no on introducing this bill.
Thank you.
But one thing that surprised me at the last hearing, that there was no author of the bill, and that was a continuous question by the people that came to testify on the bill. I contacted the Legislative Reference Bureau, and I said, well, who requested the draft of this bill? And it said that an earlier version that was released prior to the last hearing was used as a basis for this bill draft by Representative Mark Honadel. That name was unknown to us at the time of the last hearing. And I requested the chair of this committee to invite Representative Honadel and the other drafters of this proposal to be present for this public hearing.
Representative Krusek.
Will Representative Mark Honadel be present, or other drafters of this bill?
Representative Krusek, I think we will stick to the content of the bill, please. You're kind of testifying yourself.
AB 426 passes as amendment.
Committee Chair, do you know who authored this bill?
You'll read it in the paper.
Are there any co-sponsors of this bill? I was wondering, do you know who wrote this bill?
I think it was a combination of a bunch of people, don't you?
Did anyone sponsor this bill?
I think it was sponsored, don't you?
Were there any legislators who sponsored this bill?
I think there was, don't you?
Was there an author assigned to this bill?
I believe there probably was someone to take credit for that.
Right,
don't
so
you?
was that public?
Who wrote it?
Who wrote this bill?
Who wrote it?
Representative Stone, I was wondering if you knew the author of this bill?
I don't.
Do you know any co-sponsors of this bill?
Well, the bill was actually a committee bill. It was introduced as a committee.
Okay, so who wrote the language of the bill?
I'm not sure.
Did you write any of the language in this bill?
No, I did not.
Do you know anyone who did?
I don't know specifically.
To answer your question, gentleman from the 37th, Mr. Speaker, I would ask unanimous consent that myself and all Republicans be made authors of this legislation. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Nope. 14, 5, 6, 32, 27.
In which there's been so much development on the bill. And I go all the way back to the beginning of session when the corporation started building that bill in a way that ultimately didn't have much rulemaking room. That, this has been a long time project. And I go all the way back to the beginning of session when the corporation started building that bill in a...
So Fitzgerald, do you deny that the mining company wrote the mining bill?
No, they did.
So they wrote it?
No, they did.
So they wrote it?
If the question is, are we trying to influence them to pass legislation that's going to weaken environmental laws, that's going to weaken federal and state air and water quality, the answer is no.